Starting a new year, people with fibromyalgia need to plan their life and they need to prioritize what is important to them and set that as a goal and then develop a plan of how to get there and how to pace the plan to achieve success in reaching that goal. Fibromyalgia takes away confidence, can actually create in us a pattern of avoidance. And so we have to be careful that we don't allow ourselves to get caught in that trap. So I am having to switch my screen there for a moment. I apologize. I'm Trudy Flynn. I am chair of the board of directors of Fibromyalgia Association Canada, or FAC as we like to call it. I'd like to start off by saying that although people attending may be spread across Canada, I'm located in Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which the Mi'kmaq first signed with the British Crown in 1726. These treaties did not deal with the surrender of land and resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between nations. In Nova Scotia, we are all treaty people. And as part of this acknowledgement, I also recognize the histories, contributions, and legacies of the African Nova Scotian people who have been here for over 400 years. I recognize that without action, an acknowledgement is empty. An acknowledgement marks the beginning of the work ahead for FAC, not the end, in our journey towards reconciliation. So I just want to make a disclaimer here. Although Lynn and I share over 60 years of experience living with fibromyalgia, the chat we're about to have is for informational and educational purposes only and does not substitute for professional medical advice or consultations with healthcare professionals. We are not doctors, and we're speaking from our own experience. Remember, everyone with fibromyalgia is different, and different treatments and self-care methods will work differently for everyone. Always consult with your doctor for personalized medical advice. Never disregard or delay seeking professional medical advice or treatments because of something you've heard here on Fibro Chat. So thank you again for joining us today. If you're not a member of FAC, you can join at the link, which I will add to the chat in just a minute, because FAC's committed to growing our memberships for our advocacy work because there is power in numbers. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We also have closed captioning enabled. This presentation is being recorded for those who could not attend at this time and will be on our YouTube channel and also on our website. So I ask that all participants be muted and keep their video off, so only the presenters in the video for the YouTube. Okay, so Lynn and I have both had fibromyalgia for 30 years. And I'll introduce myself a bit more and then I'll turn it over to Lynn. So I live in Nova Scotia, out by Peggy's Cove, and I said I have had fibromyalgia for over 30 years, but I also have a daughter who was diagnosed at the age of 8 and a grandson who was diagnosed at 6. So caregiving was part of my steep learning curve with fibromyalgia. Besides FAC, I also do work with the Canadian Institute of Health Research, or CIHR, as well as the Maritime Spore Support Unit. These organizations both promote involving patient participation in research, which means making sure the patients are on the research team and not just the ones doing your surveys. So I think that work's important because who knows better than a patient what areas should be researched and what questions should be asked in the research. And belonging to those two organizations has led me to become a patient partner or a person with lived experience, as I like to call myself, on quite a few research studies. I am going to turn it over to Lynn to introduce herself, and then we'll get the chat started.
Hi, everyone. Trudy mentioned she's working on several research studies, and we're actually working together on at least two, and maybe more in the future. I'm Lynn Cooper, and I'm coming to you from Kitchener, Ontario, Canada, where it is snowing a lot right now on this 13th of January. I live on the territories of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee nations. And always I work to do my part toward truth and reconciliation. And I encourage everyone to do your part as well and to really honor the lands on which you live, work, and play. A little bit about me. I have been a person who has lived with pain for over 30 years, and this was the result of a preventable workplace accident. From that, I developed fibromyalgia. I deal with neuropathic pain and all of the nocioplastic pain. Um, that that's the new diagnosis of pain that goes on longer than 3 months or beyond the normal time of healing. So I have been an advocate for many years, over 20 years, for improved pain management, for recognition of people with lived experience to be involved in research, policy, in health decisions, and I've advocated for peers and orchestrated that peers would be involved in research projects. So I manage a couple of research projects currently, and I participate on advisory boards and that type of thing on research. So I am a member of the development team of the Power Over Pain portal, which is a free, evidence-informed portal that anyone who has language skills in English and French can visit. And this is an evergreen portal, so we're always adding new resources to it. And I will be putting the address for the portal in the chat very shortly. I wanted you to know that there are many resources related to our topic of discussion during this and all of our Fibro Chats, because the portal offers the opportunity to try out different resources, to learn different skills for self-help. And these different resources you can talk about with your healthcare providers. So it is really a good opportunity for you as we are in our discussion today to think about what type of resources you would like to bring into your life in 2025. So back to you, Trudy, and we'll cover more as we go.
Thank you very much, Lynn. We actually are involved in 4 research studies together, and maybe 5. And I just want to mention
I
before
forgot
we
about one.
Yes, I wanted to mention as we start this that FAC has received its very first research grant that we applied for. So we're going to be making a plan to okay, Let's try that.
Upgrade.
Upgrade. Thank you. The fibromyalgia guidelines. So they haven't been done since 2012. And so we see that as a great project. And Lynn and I will be working together on that project. Um, so get back to the topic. Winter in Canada is no joke. As Lynn mentioned, she's sitting in snowy Kitchener, and the frigid temperatures, the endless snow, or if you live in the Maritimes, the endless snow, rain. It's constantly changing. Ice pellets are a big one. And dark evenings and mornings can really make living with fibromyalgia even more challenging than it normally is. So 2025 is a new year. This is our first Fibro Chat of the new year. And it's usually a time where people set goals for the year. And people with fibromyalgia, it's difficult for us to set goals because we always think, well, we're never going to achieve them, right? So, but it's really important that you set goals for yourself. And then you sit down and you think, well, you should prioritize your goals. What is it that's most important to you this year? And then you create a plan. And that plan needs to include pacing because I've learned over all the years I've had fibromyalgia that pacing is the most important thing in my life. And for the first time, I think since I've had fibromyalgia, I put that to practice over Christmas and spread Christmas over 3 days. Gifts were Christmas Eve, visiting was Christmas Day, and the dinner was Boxing Day. And I have to admit, I came out of Christmas better than I've ever come out of Christmas before. So that pacing is really, really important. And I want to go back to Lynn because she mentioned something to me last week when we were talking about this chat, something called SMART goals. And I'm interested to hear, Lynn, what is your definition of a SMART goal?
Well, it's not my definition, but I've really adopted it in my life. And uh, I think I'm just going to pop back just a little bit here, if I may, Trudy. When we were talking last week, we really wanted to inspire our folks who are attending today and our YouTube visitors to really embrace 2025, to do your year your way. And I actually saw, I was watching a program. I don't usually watch it, but I just happened to see it. It was Kelly Ripa and her husband.
Yes.
And so live in the morning. And they have this thing going. It's called How to Thrive in 2025. And I thought, how amazing. What a thing to think about. Your year, your way, and how to thrive in 2025. And to have the courage to, to step up and to envision your life, your fibromyalgia managed better, and to allow ourselves to think about doing more things and to feel better and be better. So that kind of sums up what we were talking about last week, I think, Trudy.
Yes, it does
And
actually.
and you can't do that without a plan. You
Mhm.
can't do that without goal. And in order to set goals and to work your plan, you have to do that prioritizing that you were mentioning, prioritizing what's important to you, what is going to make a difference in your life in the short term, in the medium term, and what will you be thinking about on December 31st, 2025? You know, It's that kind of thing. And in order to be able to manage all of this, it's important for us to be kind to ourselves, be our own cheer team when things are not the way we want them to be, and to pace through things. So goal setting can be a really positive thing. It can be challenging, Trudy. We know this. And it's important to really be careful about how we set our goal. And someone who I'm afraid I can't give credit to right now, wasn't me, decided to create SMART goals. So are lots of opportunities to go online and research about SMART goal to come up with a template, create your goal, and then kind of manage it. Yeah. So SMART goal, this is short for, S stands for something specific. M stands for something that you can actually measure. A means achievable. You can actually reach that goal. Relevant, meaning it's relevant to you, important to you, and it's time bound. And so there's a specific timeline. So I can give an example if that would help.
Sure.
Okay. So SMART goals. What I find helpful for me to do is to come up with that generalized goal. So for instance, my goal is to be more physically fit in 2025. So that's a big umbrella goal. How in the world would you ever measure that? How in the world would you know along the way if you were making progress in that type of thing? So you can take that. Lynn wants to be more physically fit in 2025. What does that look like? So to be specific, I want to build on my walking regimen, which is solid for me right now. It's an average of 5 kilometers a day, give or take, depending how I'm feeling. Now, everybody, don't assume that if you're not doing 5K a day, you're not doing enough. Don't think that 5K a day came easy for me, because it didn't. This has been years of building and building and building. I remember starting to walk to the end of my street and back, and that was my goal. Okay. So, but these are my goals, and we're going to follow my goals. And Trudy, if not today, at our February meeting, she's going to be setting a specific goal too. So specific, I'm going to add to my walking by reactivating my free weight regimen, which I already know and have, but haven't been doing. And also to activate, Trudy, my post-walking stretching regimen. Okay. So how am I going to measure that? Well, I'm going to build to 5 exercises using 3-pound weights. I have 5 exercises that I can do, that I know how to do safely. And I'm going to build up from 1-pound weights to 3-pound weights. And then I'm going to, in my post walk stretching regimen. I'm going to do 10 reps of each. By the end of my timeline, because it has to be measurable, that's the M, as of the 1st of May. And is this achievable? I know it's achievable because I have done all of this before. So I know it's achievable, but this is going to have to happen little bit by little bit by little bit going forward, so I don't put myself into a fibro flare.
That's interesting, Lynn, because yeah, I've done sort of the same thing because I haven't been as active as I normally am
Yeah.
this past year. I'm not sure why, but you get busy, days get away from you. So my daughter, excuse me, as I said earlier, my asthma is a bit out of whack these days, but my daughter and I have set ourselves up with a challenge, and the challenge requires us. So we're trying to walk 5.8 kilometers a day. And they gave us a number and we divided it by 31 in January. So, but we have to log that every day. And I have to tell you that today is the 13th, I believe. Yes,
It
of
is.
January. And there have been so many days that I have not wanted to do that. And, but because we had to log every day, I find myself more apt to do it because I don't want to miss a day, right? And if you miss a day, which I did last week because I really wasn't feeling well enough to do it, then I tag some extra time each day, a little bit, not very much, so that I can make up for that amount that we missed. And so by the end of January, I've set the goal for January to have a certain number of kilometers and reassess and see
Good.
how we did. Because I know if I waited till May, on I don't know, April 20th, I would realize, oh my goodness, I've got all this to do because I had this goal for May. So I keep my goals shorter because otherwise I wouldn't achieve them. So if
Yeah.
you have to do it weekly, if you have to do it bi-weekly, I have to do it monthly. I can't make it any longer than that. So
I've done
it's
it
like,
daily.
yeah.
I've
Well,
done,
actually,
I,
we are doing it daily because we have
yeah,
to log at the end
yes,
of the day, right? But
yes.
I know people, they set goals at New Year's and they say, I'm going to lose 100 pounds this year, but they never make a plan. And so if you don't make that plan, you really are not going to achieve that because, well, not if you're like me anyway, because you get partway through the year and it's like, oh, I haven't even lost a pound. And, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I, you just kind of give it up, right? And that's why they say so many goals or New Year's resolutions. I don't do resolutions. I do goals and planning, but resolutions, so many of them are broken by the second weekend in January. And so that's why I don't do them, is because I have to have a plan and I have to be able to move forward. And a lot of people with fibromyalgia think, well, that's nice for you, but those don't have to be your goals. Your goals could be get up every morning at 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, whatever time you want to get up. That's your goal. Your goal could be spending less time on the computer this year, reading more books this year. But it doesn't matter what your goal is. The important thing is to have a plan and to implement that plan and make that plan accountable. So I like your definition of smart
Yeah.
because it's so true. You have
And
to accomplish all of those letters.
yeah. So specific to me is I'm going to increase those two, add back in something I know all I can already do
Mhm.
from the past. I'm older than when I did it, so I need to be realistic that it's going to take me time. And I deliberately chose something so that you can ask me in February, March, April, and May how I'm progressing with those specific things. And it's measurable because I've set the number of reps or I have set the number of exercises. This is very relevant to me. The specifics of this are relevant to, well, first of all, I know it's achievable. It's relevant to me because I want to increase my fitness. I want to be in a different place with my fitness. And I know that I've given myself what I think is enough time to do it. So it's 4.5 months. And because I have fibromyalgia, if I were to get to May the 1st and I hadn't quite achieved what I just told everybody I was going to do, for me, that is not the end of the world. What I would want to see is that I've made some dedicated headway towards
Mhm.
it. So my plan is not to make May 1st a cliff that I'm going to fall over if I don't meet that goal. I know that I have to be forgiving of myself and supportive of myself to be able to readjust. And you may find that when we get together in March, for instance, that I'm going to say, hey, I realize that this may not be realistic and I'm going to reevaluate. So this is kind of important. And I just want to put it out there because we can have very lofty aspirations, and we have to give ourselves permission to readjust.
Yes.
But the most important thing, I think, Trudy, is to give ourselves permission to reach toward something that's realistic, to reach toward a dream, a goal. Fibromyalgia, chronic pain of any kind, can catch us in quite a vicious circle where you have pain and it has all the psychological uh, implications like depression, anger, fear, many of those negative emotions. It can cause us to not want to move our bodies. And when that happens, then our bodies become deconditioned. So doing some sort of exercise, some sort of stretching, possibly chair yoga or chair exercises during the day can really help us. But we can get immobilized. We can pull back from our family and friends and become isolated. And we can have challenges in sleeping. And all of this will increase our experience of pain. And then that in turn fuels that cycle again. And so it's really important for us to figure out a way to plan ways that we can break that cycle.
I agree.
So,
That's really important, actually. I do. I
yeah,
agree with that. And I I just don't want people to give up and to give up on themselves. And your goals don't have to be exercise related. They can
no,
be anything. Just as long as you put yourself first, because people with fibromyalgia, and myself included, because I have gone through this, especially when I had to leave my job. that was the most isolating and depressing time of my life to have
Hmm.
to medically retire. And it's not only that it changes your livelihood, it changes, it changed my whole social circle because my friends were the people I worked with. And they slowly drift away when you're not well. So um, it's that you, but it's that you find something that's going to make you feel good about yourself when you accomplish it, whether you check in monthly, quarterly, or yearly. It's you need something that's going to make you feel better about yourself. I promised myself two things as the world was changing around me. And I promised myself I would stay educated on technology and relevant. I did not want to be, I have a grandson, and I didn't want to be one of those grandparents that always had to have their grandson figure out that darn internet for me. I
Hmm.
promised myself that I would stay relevant and stay up to date on technology, and I promised myself that as I aged, and I think as you get older, you think about this more, that I would age as healthy as I could. I
Hmm.
always promised myself that, and that I would have goals and I wouldn't give up on myself. When I first got sick, and well, no, not when I first got sick. When I first got sick, I wasn't that bad. I was able to work. I was able to keep going. But when I had to stop working, I don't remember anything for 4 months. I don't think I got out of bed for 4 months. And then I slowly had to um, recondition myself. Oh my goodness, when you don't move, and it does not take long to decondition. It really doesn't. And I had to start moving. It was my family actually that I thought, um, I don't know what happened. I think it was something to do with my daughter's university or something. And I just realized that my family needed me, and I had to get out of this bed. I just couldn't stay there any longer. My family needed me, and I needed myself. And I think that's where I slowly came back. But if you were to ask me what happened in those 4 months, I have no idea. That's 4 lost months of my life, right? And so I just want people to realize that it, like I've been able to run, and I use that word lightly because I walk as much as I run. And so but lately I found since COVID, I haven't been doing that either. So I had to remind myself at New Year's that I promised myself to age as healthy as I could. And so I think that's motivating me this year. And you reach milestone birthdays and things like that, that you reassess your life as you get older. You people who are younger here, you're not thinking that way right now. And but the healthier you can be to get to where we are today, the healthier you will age too. So but goals are individual. They really, really have to be individual because you have to want them. And I think
True.
and you have to not give up on yourself because you have fibromyalgia. It's taken
Yes.
enough from us. We can't let it take our happiness, right?
And you can start if you feel like fibro and chronic pain has taken most everything away from you. It I'm sitting here living proof with my skiing idol, the print limited edition print of my skiing idol, Nancy Green Rain, the tiger of the slopes back in the day, um, behind me. And she's there. That is there on purpose to remind me that, you can reach for the mountain. You can do your whatever your race is in your life, and you can succeed by increments. You can succeed, so you can take your life back in increments and you can reinvent your life.
Yes.
There are things that I was very active doing before I was injured at work that I don't do anymore because it's not physically possible. However, I have reinvented myself many different times um, as a volunteer, as an employed person, as a pain community leader, as a research team leader. I purposely did this and I chose to do this work because I was striving to make things different and better for other people. And I hope along the way that I have helped individuals. I still see the need. My personal motto is see the need, rise to the challenge, and take action to help. And that really has fueled me for all of these years, helped to give me purpose when maybe I wasn't feeling like I was being very successful, um, or that, I wasn't giving all I could to the world. So I encourage everyone to, now that you've come through the holiday season, and we're almost, believe it or not, halfway through January, and I just encourage you, if you've had a bit of chance to recoup from that, to start thinking about what matters to you and what would you like to do again that maybe you haven't been doing for a while, like I'm going to do? Or what is something new that you would like to do, and how to set that up so that you can have smaller milestones and build and build and build.
Well,
And and
the fibromyalgia community has a lot of our members who have conditions like ME or like rheumatoid arthritis, and
Mhm.
they unfortunately, have even more restrictions on their lives than we do. So, I mean, I have other comorbidities, but they aren't those. And so, but even setting goals, you have to recognize your limitations, right? And then
Of
make,
course,
I
yes.
guess that's the realistic part of it. So is your goal maybe to take a course this year,
Mhm.
and or things like that that still better you, and still allow you the opportunity to feel good about yourself. I
Yeah.
think you said something about bettering the world. I I think when you have fibromyalgia sometimes, and maybe this is me, I like to better the world. Don't get me wrong. It's one of the reasons that I munch in back, but even better your own world. Like
Mhm.
yeah, even
Agree.
trying to
Agree.
better your own world is a really good thing. And you don't have to set goals January 1st. You can set goals any time of the year. You can set a goal
Yeah.
February 1st, and this is your goal just for February. And if you reach that
Yes.
goal, that's a major accomplishment considering what we live with, right? And
True.
I find January always has been a difficult time of year because it's cold and I hate the cold. I used to be a skier before I developed fibromyalgia, and I loved the cold. I cross country skied, I downhill skied, I skated. I skated the whole Rideau Canal one year when I was living in Ottawa, and but I find those things more challenging now because the cold bothers me. So
Mhm.
I've learned valuable lessons about dealing with the cold by layering because
No
you
kidding.
know, yeah, I own more layering clothes than, and when we were talking, you talked about the under layer, like
Base layers.
yeah, base layers.
or long underwear. That's what
Thank
they
you.
used to
Yeah,
call it.
I, I, s- I still call it long underwear. So, and you said you had long underwear that has lasted you for years, and so do I. I have long underwear still that I used to use for skiing, and I'm like, and believe me,
Mhm.
that's a long time ago. So,
It's a good
uh,
investment.
it's
It
a
really
wonderful
is.
investment. And if you
I'm
can
only
wear
on my,
wool, Merano, the ones with
yeah,
Merano wool are really
yes.
exceptional. I can't wear wool, so but you have to layer scarves. I have more scarves than I can count, and I don't mean fancy scarves. I mean 20 degrees below scarves, and
Mhm.
I have two. I have two winter coats. I look at the thermometer before I go outside, and if it's minus
Mm,
15 or warmer, I wear one coat, and once it get past minus 15, I have this heavier uh, um, parka, and I only wear it when it's more than minus 15 because it's heavy, and I find it hurts my shoulders, hurts my neck if I wear it for a long period of time. But
I hear you about
yeah,
that. I like
but the
light ones.
cold is, yeah, I
Yeah.
like light ones too, but the
The
cold is
lightweight ones, but ones that will give you warmth. That's why if
yeah,
I have to, I put my base layer on, and
yeah,
then that gives me the extra little bit of warmth if I'm walking outside
yeah.
or shoveling snow, as the case may be. But something we were talking about was alternatives for getting out in the world. If you are in a place where, the winter weather will allow it, and we were talking about going to a mall
Hmm. Yes,
and being able to walk there inside where you don't have to worry about ice or any of that. Some communities have recreation centers
yeah,
where you can walk, or you can, or YMYWCAs, where you can have a membership for a pool or water exercises. They often have that type of thing in the winter. Um, Sometimes around the top of an ice rink,
yes,
an auditorium type of ice rink, they will have a walking track.
yep,
And barring that, a person can walk around their house. And if you have stairs in your house, you can uh, carefully manage doing a little bit of stair work, build up to it, marching in place, doing some of those chair exercises, or even on the Chesterfield, you can do
yep.
them.
Isometric exercises are great.
Yes.
One of our members who's here today talked about doing isometric exercises while she was brushing her teeth. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you have to stand there anyway, so you might as well be doing something like that. And you know what? That makes a difference. No matter how small, it makes a difference. And one day you realize, okay, I could do isometric exercises. Now I can do chair exercises. So,
Mm-hmm.
no matter how small your goal is, it's that goal that's important to you that matters. And nobody in this community will judge other people. I actually find people judge you faster if you do too much and if you do too little. So it's
Well, you certainly
amazing.
know if you've done too much, don't you?
Oh, oh, yes,
And
you do.
there's a message there.
Yeah.
Ouch, ouch, ouch. And then
I
you
find,
just
sorry,
readjust.
yes, I find this time of year, January, I guess February is a shorter month. And so when I get to February, I'm like, there's only 28 days. And then it's March, and March is spring. So I talk myself through January, right? But it's this time of year where
Hmm.
I like things like electric heating pads, electric blankets. I have something called a hoodie, and it is the warmest thing that I've ever had on, because I find our house, and it's not an old house, but it still gets cool in the afternoon as the sun, if we had sun that day. I don't remember the last time we've seen sun here, so but it gets cool, and I put on sweaters and my hoodie and blankets and different things like that, because I just find being cold makes me stiff, and the stiffer I am, the sorer I am. So, um, it's kind of like, that's why I wear that heavy coat, because
Yeah.
it's better to be warm, even though it's a little heavy. It's better to be warm than it is to. Wouldn't matter. I'd be sore anyway. With my other coat, I'd be all bunched up, trying to. So,
Well, in
it's just keeping warm, if I find is that's my key message in January. Find something that you could do and keep warm, right?
mhm.
And we can't,
Well, we
unfortunately, all go south.
we have a dear friend who would keep warm and knit,
Hmm. Yes,
and I would keep warm and find a mini series or something, or to watch, or work on a jigsaw puzzle, or
mhm,
um, read a favorite book, or start a new series, that kind of a thing. And I really love um, a heating pad that I invested in many years ago. So, yes, it's an investment, but it comes down the back and then comes over the shoulders,
well, that's
because
nice.
this is where I carry a lot of pain
Yeah, me
and
too.
stiffness. And so I will use that. And I also have a magic bag, which you can buy at any of your pharmacies, and you can heat it in the microwave to whatever, and cool it as well.
Yeah,
If you need to do heat and cool on an area, you can do that. And I find those things are helpful because there are days, funny thing, I have no explanation for it, but especially in January, February, I can just be cold, and the house temperature hasn't changed. I've got a sweater on, I've got good socks and shoes or slippers on, and it it's all, I should be just fine because the day before I was, but I'm feeling cold. No, I don't have a fever either. I'm not sick. It just, that's how my fibromyalgia impacts me. So then the best thing I can do for myself is to find one of those heating sources
yes.
and just take some time to get warmed up.
Do
And
you know,
that
Lynn, you mentioned
makes,
something last week. You said you find between the temperatures of +5 and -5
mhm,
colder than if it was -15. And
yes,
I was out over the
yes.
weekend, and I was thinking of you when I was out, because it was so cold. And I think you and I talked about this. I think it's the dampness in the air.
It is. For
If
me,
it
it's
would
the
just
dampness.
get cold and stay cold and have snow, but it's when you've got those in between temperatures, I find there's nothing colder than those temperatures. And it's especially here in the Maritimes, it's very damp
Yeah,
here, right?
yeah.
So it's, yeah, I find that a real struggle. But talking about setting goals before we close up, I've
Okay.
set many a goals. I have boxes and boxes of yarn because I was going to knit an Afghan in that year. I
Not
had
me.
so much material because I was going to make a quilt that year. I even bought patterns to make my two daughters a quilt for Christmas. I was going to start it in January. I got all the different packages. It was something where they sent you one a month, and so you did
Mm.
that one. Are you kidding? I haven't even taken January out of the package. January probably 2000 and maybe 10. So,
Laugh at yourself and
but
call our friend.
we we have to pick realistic goals, and those obviously were not realistic goals, or I would have done them, right? So yeah, you have to make sure the goal is realistic. I keep saying when I retire, but I am retired.
No, you're not.
But even then, I just, and I've got a list of books to read longer than your arm, and yeah. So you just have to. Now that I'm thinking about it, though, I need to set that goal of getting some of my craft projects underway, and my kids just keep buying me craft projects. And I'm thinking, I didn't do the one you bought me last year or the year before. So, but
See,
anyway,
folks, we just laugh at each other and
yeah,
ourselves.
yeah.
We're human.
Because believe me, I do. Obviously, I don't reach my goals every year. So I will check in February and let you know if I've at least reached my January goal.
I,
Well,
you know what? You're going to have to report to me, lady. But the thing is that if you've had to if you've had to renegotiate this with yourself, if you know, that is perfectly okay. And you don't need to feel as though you're less than, you're being realistic. Um, because in some ways, the SMART goals, the R stands for relevant, but it can also, people use the word realistic as well. And
or
I think,
reevaluate, right?
yeah, there are a lot of R's.
Yeah. But
It's like there are a lot of F words.
well,
We
asthma's
can
not a
talk
good
about
thing either.
frustration, et cetera, et cetera. So
Making me
I
laugh
just,
triggers my asthma.
oh, sorry.
But I
Well,
will say, Lynn, though, this is something too. You have to allow yourself down days. So when I set this goal up for January, I looked at what if I have to take one day a week off? What if I end up taking a couple days off?
mhm,
And how do I re readjust that? There's another readjust
mhm,
that and
yes,
still reach my goal. So when because we have days, right? And so
that's
we
right.
you cannot set a goal that you have to maintain every single day because that's not realistic. And but I've allowed
And
myself leeway, right? So that I can make up on other days what I didn't do. And it's reachable. Still talking about the R's, right?
yeah, we're just going to redo this whole R word on the SMART goal. And you know what? I just wanted to mention too that we can have some really wonderful supports from family and friends, colleagues sometimes, but our healthcare providers,
Hmm.
who hopefully people will have them that they can reach out and just check in with their healthcare providers, have a discussion possibly about some goals that they might be taking on, you know, be a social worker, a psychologist, they're a physiotherapist, an occupational therapist, um, your family physician. Sometimes just scheduling one or two appointments at the beginning of whatever you're doing and then some maintenance appointments can really help you know that you've got some backup there and what you're doing from the healthcare provider's perspective is safe for you,
Yes.
you
Now I
know?
have to say, Lynn,
Mm.
unfortunately, lots of us, and I'm using us as a word here. Uh, well, at least as far as family doctors go, I wouldn't be able to do that with my family doctor. So my family doctor is good, and I'm not saying anything bad about her, but she does not look after my fibromyalgia. She prefers if she doesn't even want to discuss it. So she kind
Mhm.
of said that's you look after that and I'll look after the other things, right? Like blood pressure,
Sure.
cholesterol, and all of those things. But
And that,
but something that people can do though is get help from support groups. Get yourself
mhm,
a reliable support group where you can have people who are supportive behind you. and make sure it's not a support group that doesn't do that. There are support groups out there that are not. And so, support groups, because sometimes you don't have family and friends to get behind you, right? And so
That's right.
sometimes join community group. And there are lots of community groups for people with chronic illnesses. It doesn't have to be fibromyalgia. And so, reach out and join FAC, join one of
Mm-hmm.
FAC's committees and volunteer. And you'll get lots of support at our committee meetings and volunteering. So
Yeah.
you
Check
have to be creative, right?
check in with organizations that uh, that exist if you have another disease or condition. So there
Mhm.
are organizations like the Arthritis Society, the Canadian Arthritis Patient Alliance,
Yes.
the Canadian Injured Workers Alliance, with whom I'm an advisor now. The well, certainly Power Over Pain is the portal, poweroverpain.ca, Canadian Diabetes Association, the Osteoporosis, I'm sorry, Osteoporosis Association of Canada,
Yep.
and many others to get information about ways that you can help yourself.
Yes,
And
because if you have fibromyalgia, a large number of us have comorbidities that,
mm,
as you can hear me coughing with my asthma here, that's been triggered. It's you have to look after the comorbidities too. They're I find when I have asthma attacks, they're exhausting, and so if you add that to our already tired bodies with fibromyalgia, it's you have to look after your comorbidities. That's partly why some people with fibromyalgia have to live such a restrictive life. It's their comorbidities that are
mhm,
a
very
huge
true.
problem for people with fibromyalgia. So I appreciate you sharing, all those organizations, because they're very lupus is another one that's
Oh, yes.
associated with fibromyalgia. Migraines is another one. So I mean, uh you might have your fibromyalgia under control, but if you don't have your migraines under control, you're not accomplishing much either, because those are debilitating. So
And it's one step at a time, or
yes.
literally, it can be one step at a time, finding ways to support yourself emotionally,
Hmm.
psychologically, physically, spiritually.
Yes, thank you, Lynn, this was
And
great.
so appreciate your time today, Trudy, and wishing everyone a great rest of January. These things that we've talked about, except for the cold part, really apply for any time, any day in your life.
And if anyone has any questions, you can stay on. I'll stop the recording, and if you have anything you want to ask, just let us know.
So we will check back in February
Yes, we will.
2025.
Yes. I kind of look at that. I'm an optimist. I thought 2020 was going to be a good year, so here's to a good 2025, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye now.